I guess we can say that I'm in the home stretch on the jointer now, and this will probably be the last build video in this series. I may make some improvements or changes in the future that I'll cover in subsequent videos, but after this one, the jointer is basically finished and ready to use. And to get started on this, I'm going to add the power switch and a proper cord to plug it in to use it. I'm not going to show a whole lot of this though, because electrical work is very specific to whatever region you're in. And there's not a whole lot to this anyway, you're just wiring in a switch. And the one that I'm using here is from my old table saw. I figured this is a good place to reuse it. And it might seem strange where I'm putting the switch on this machine, but I think this is actually the best place for it. I'd rather be on back of the cutter head when I turn it on rather than in front of it, just in case something's in there or something comes loose. It's not going to fly directly at me. And then when you're finished with the cut, you're over there anyway, so it's convenient to turn it off. Next thing to take care of is the belt guard. And once again, I'm not going to go overboard with how complex this is. The main thing that I'm looking for here is to cover this belt, but still leave access to the things that I have to adjust on the machine itself. So I've got a piece of scrap wood that I took off my old table saw actually. I'm going to use that for the straight parts here. I'm just going to eyeball them in place and mark where they need to be cut, and then cut that on the bandsaw and bring it over and screw it onto the side of the machine. What this leaves me with is a flat on the top where I'm going to put a piece of 1/2-inch plywood, and then it also leaves the bottom open just in case anything gets inside that belt guard. They'll just fall out. Now before I make a cover for this, I need to start this up and check to make sure everything clears. And sure enough, the belt slaps the one up on top, but I think that only happens when it starts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it, and I'm going to plane a piece and see if it happens again. And yes, unfortunately it does. It rubs against the piece on top. So to fix that, I'm going to move that piece up on top away just a little bit further, and I'm also going to increase the tension on the belt. And then after I did that, I could see that it's clearing properly, so I picked out another scrap of plywood to make the cover with. To make the cover look a little bit better, I rounded over the corners on my router table, and I also had to make a hole in the middle to access the screw that adjusts the height of the outfeed table. And now that the power switch and the belt guard are all finished and installed, I can turn my attention to the fence. And I didn't want this to be complex at all. Originally, I thought I would make this so that it tilts, but then I got to thinking about it and I realized that I'm probably never gonna need a tilt function on this fence. So it'd be better to just keep it simple and get it done. What I've got here is a piece of 3/4-inch Baltic birch plywood, and it's nice and straight and flat, and I've cut it to 4 inches wide. And then I'm gonna cut another piece of this that'll be the guide for the fence, except it doesn't have to be the full 35 inches long. Basically, I want the fence to go from one side to the other, and I also want it to act as kind of a guard or a cover for the cutter head, so this guide part will do that. And this is gonna sit right up on top of those buttress blocks that I added to the ends of the bearing. So I need to draw a line on the back of the fence that lines up with those. And then I can position the guide in place and mark where I can drill holes for screws. After it's put together, I can try it out on the machine, and you can see basically here how it's going to work. Of course, this has to be perfectly square to the outfeed table, so I'm going to have to make some adjustments as I go along, but I'm not going to do that yet. I haven't glued the guide to the back of the fence for that reason. What I'll do is I'll dial it in perfectly, and then I'll glue it up solid. But the next thing that I need to make is the clamping system for this fence. And once again, I'm making that as simply as I can. I'm just using pieces of hardwood on the end to position the guide, and then a bar across the top that will clamp down onto that guide and hold it in place.